Hi, David. You had asked me to take a closer look at your watch to really tell you what's going on. And so I have some time this afternoon, and I opened this up so we could see some of the things. One of the hallmarks of what I call a Philippines rework is for some reason either they don't have the correct parts to restore a watch, or they're not really concerned about taking the time to find the right parts. So they will make repairs and make do with whatever they can come up with. They use rusty parts, they use bad parts. So this is your watch. I just got it apart. The thing I was talking about, the first thing, was the crown and stem. These are supposed to be a four-part construction with a crown, a stem, a gear, and a gear spring. As I suspected, all four parts are wrong or missing, basically. There's nothing here that is correct. The stem is probably original Seiko. The rest of it is not. That gear might be, but they didn't have the right crown, and they didn't have the spring, and so they did. This is very typical for these Philippines reworks. They just kind of came up with this. It looks like they pressed some kind of tube in place here to hold this spring down. The spring to hold the gear down. The gear is supposed to be able to move back and forth, so you don't break the plastic teeth on the underside of this thing. They didn't do that, so of course they just sort of made something. This thing is just made up because they didn't have the original parts. This is the movement ring spring, and you can see how rusty it is, and that the spring is missing, and it's all bent. I mean, that's supposed to be a beautiful C-shaped semicircle that goes almost all the way around. This is part of it, and it's warped, and there's just rust in this channel. Rust in that channel. Very typical. These are the buttons. Both seals are missing. There are no seals. They simply removed the seals. There are no seals here. Also, additionally, you only have one spring. There's supposed to be two. They only had one. That is an original spring. That's something. That's good. And another piece of ridiculousness. They didn't have the... Oh, it's a fake dial, of course. And they didn't have the movement ring. I mean, I must have dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens. I must have hundreds of these things. They're not hard to find. But they went and made one out of brass. Why did they do that? Well, probably because labor is cheaper than trying to find the actual correct part. So, fake dial, bad hands, faded chronograph hands, handmade parts, a handmade movement ring, corrosion. This nonsense. This is the kind of stuff that you're going to see. You buy one of these watches, and people who are not very, very, very careful and who are trusting and good people will buy these watches thinking that the descriptions are honest and that the watches are honest, and then they get things like this. And it's one of the reasons I campaign against buying watches from the Philippines unless you really, really, really know what you're doing, or you know the seller very well. If you don't know the seller and you don't really know what you're doing, and you know, because it's a tough subject to really be up on these, to know what good looks like. If you don't know what that stuff, if you don't know your stuff, it's dangerous to get involved in it, because bad things can happen. You can end up with a watch like this, which is not worth restoring. It's not worth your time. So you wanted to know more about what I found inside. There it is. That's what I found. Fake dial, aftermarket, bezel and insert, heavily repolished case, faded but original indicator ring, no one missing spring, no seals, handmade stem assembly, a bad movement ring spring, rusted movement ring, handmade dial ring. That's what you get when you are drawn in and trusting. So you wanted to know more, and there we are. So let's come up with some other options for you. Again, my recommendation stands. Don't put any money into this watch. And as always, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but I guess it's good for us to be able to get a chance to see what's really going on with these. Okay. Bye-bye.